Peace be unto you. Blessed be the Holy One. Welcome to Bet Yisrael International's Voice of Torah podcast for this week's Tikkun Birt Hadshah on Parshat Vayera. In today's episode of Gaddi Efrayim's Notes from the Sages' Writings, we will explore the profound concept of Mesirat Nefesh from the Sages, or self-sacrifice, the willingness to give of oneself entirely to fulfill God's will. This level of devotion represents the highest commitment in one's spiritual practice. Jewish Yeshua HaTzaddik, portrayed as a righteous teacher, embodies Mesirat Nefesh. His life was dedicated to guiding others towards spiritual awakening and sincere repentance. His teachings emphasize the importance of inner purity, genuine worship, and adherence to the Torah's deeper spiritual meanings. In the context of Jewish Mesirat Nefesh, the essence of self-sacrifice is not limited to physical martyrdom. From sages, encompasses the willingness to surrender one's personal desires, ego, and self-interest for the sake of fulfilling the divine will. This concept aligns deeply with Chassidic and Kabbalistic understandings of the Jewish soul's journey and its ultimate connection to God. As Gaddi Efrayim beautifully puts it in the Book of Wisdom, true Mesirat Nefesh, the devotion to give of oneself entirely for God's will, holds the power to bring forth spiritual resurrection and transformation from the sages. As one who sacrifices self finds eternal life. Thank you for joining us today, and many blessings to all our listeners.
All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going deep on Tikkun Birt Hadshah.
Ooh, yeah, I love this
Oh,
time.
no, right?
Oh.
It can sound a little, I don't know, maybe intimidating at first, but trust me, we're going to break it down, make it super clear. By the end, you'll be saying, Tikkun Birt Hadshah, that's my jam.
Totally.
We're talking about spiritual repair, renewal, a total soul makeover, Jewish mysticism style.
Hey.
And guess what?
Hit me.
We've got the ultimate toolkit spread out right here. Torah portions, boom. Talmudic insights, check.
Nice.
Even some Kabbalah and Chassidut wisdom sprinkled in for good measure.
This is going to be good.
So buckle up, folks, because we're going on a journey through some seriously powerful Jewish mystical teachings. Get ready for some mind-blowing stuff. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Tikkun Birt Hadshah. Okay, so we're talking rectification of the new covenant.
Yeah, title. Right.
It is. It gets right to the heart of this idea. It's about, imagine your soul on a journey. A journey toward healing, wholeness, coming home spiritually.
Spiritual homecoming? Yeah, love that. But how do we even start this journey? What's step one on the Tikkun Birt Hadshah roadmap?
Well, one concept that's super important is Mesirat Nefesh.
Okay, hold on. Mesirat Nefesh. Break that down for us.
It's usually translated as self-sacrifice or, complete dedication. It's about stepping outside of our own wants, desires, ego.
Like putting something bigger than ourselves first.
Yeah, exactly. Aligning ourselves with something much, much greater.
Okay, so this isn't just I'm giving up coffee for a week kind of dedication. We're talking serious commitment here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is the big leagues.
Got it. So any examples of Mesirat Nefesh in action? Something to help us wrap our heads around this idea.
Of course. I mean, what better example than the Akida?
Oh, man. The Akida, the binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Heavy stuff.
Right. This story, it's a cornerstone of Jewish thought. It brings those themes of faith, obedience, even spiritual resurrection, just to life.
Totally. But for those who might not know this story, could you give us a quick recap, set the stage?
Sure. So we're in the book of Genesis. God tells Abraham, hey, offer your son Isaac as sacrifice.
Whoa, talk about a test of faith.
Right. But Abraham, showing just immense faith, prepares to obey.
Yeah, can you imagine?
And just as he's about to go through with it, God intervenes, stop, don't do it, and provides a ram instead.
Talk about a plot twist.
It's intense. But here's where it gets even more interesting. You see, Jewish sages, they don't just see this as a story about sacrifice. They see it as a blueprint for, you guessed it, Mesirat Nefesh.
Oh, hold on. You're saying Abraham's willingness to give up, to sacrifice his own son? That's a reflection of the inner surrender we're supposed to be doing every day.
It's a powerful parallel, right?
Mind blown.
And get this. This is where the Akida goes even deeper. According to tradition, that ram, it wasn't just some random ram hanging out in the bushes.
What do you mean?
Jewish tradition says that ram was created, get this, on the 6th day of creation, specifically for this moment, preordained, right from the start.
Wow. built into the divine plan from the beginning.
Exactly. And it's not just about the ram existing either. The ashes, the sinews, even the horns of that ram. Jewish sages find symbolic meaning in all of it.
Wait, really? Like, what could the ashes of a ram symbolize? I'm so curious.
For example, the horns. They're linked to the shofar. One horn is said to have been blown at Mount Sinai. The other, saved for the future redemption.
Whoa. Like, every detail is packed with meaning.
It's incredible, right?
Okay, one thing that always gets me about this story, Isaac.
Yeah.
He wasn't a little kid. He could have resisted, right? It wasn't just Abraham making a sacrifice here.
Absolutely. You're hitting on something really important. Jewish sages, they interpret Isaac's willingness, his acceptance, as the embodiment of the Tzaddik.
A righteous person.
Exactly. He chose to trust both God and his father, a powerful act of partnership and faith.
I never thought about it like that. It's this dance between surrender and trust. But you mentioned earlier that Mesirat Nefesh isn't just about physical death, right? What did you mean by that?
Well, the Akedah, it's definitely a dramatic example, but Mesirat Nefesh, it's also about those daily choices we make. Those moments where we surrender our own desires, our ego, and align ourselves with divine will.
So it's like those little deaths we experience every day, those times when we choose something bigger than ourselves, even if it's hard.
Exactly. And this actually brings us to another really fascinating piece of Tikkun Birt Hadshah, this whole idea of Yeshua HaTzaddik.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about like Yeshua HaTzaddik in the context of Jewish mystical thought?
We are. It might sound surprising, but it's true.
This is getting good.
These teachings, they draw some really interesting parallels between Yeshua's life and the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef.
Mashiach ben Yosef, the suffering Messiah.
Exactly. The one who, paves the way for redemption through self-sacrifice.
Okay, I need a second to process this. So we're saying within this specific mystical tradition, Yeshua is seen as like a model of Mesirat Nefesh.
Precisely. It's a complex perspective for sure. We're going to need to unpack it carefully.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's unpack it. So how do these teachings actually see Yeshua's actions as Mesirat Nefesh? And how does all of this tie back to Tikkun Birt Hadshah, this idea of spiritual repair?
Okay, so according to these teachings, Yeshua dedicated his life to guiding others towards spiritual awakening. His teachings, they emphasized inner purity, sincere worship, a deep understanding of the Torah's spiritual meaning. And this dedication, even when he faced hardship, opposition, that's seen as a powerful form of self-sacrifice.
That makes sense. If he was truly committed to those teachings to helping others, he was bound to run into challenges.
Right. And if Mesirat Nefesh is about aligning yourself with a higher purpose, even when it's difficult, then Yeshua's life definitely seems to fit that description.
Yeah, absolutely. But remember, we were saying Mesirat Nefesh isn't just about physical death. It's about that inner surrender, letting go of ego and desires for a higher purpose. So Yeshua's dedication to his teachings, his willingness to endure suffering for his message, that can be seen as like a profound act of Mesirat Nefesh.
Exactly. It's about that inner transformation, that willingness to put something greater than yourself first.
Okay, so we're seeing this link between self-sacrifice and spiritual growth. Gaddi Efrayim's notes on Jewish Yeshua the righteous and self-sacrifice for spiritual repair. It's really thought-provoking.
Oh, yeah. His work always is.
So let's jump right in, shall we? What exactly is this whole Mesirat Nefesh thing all about?
Well, it's not just about, physically dying for a cause or something. It's more about a really deep spiritual surrender.
Spiritual surrender.
Yeah, like aligning your will completely with God's will.
So it's more like an internal shift than an outward action?
Exactly. Gaddi Efrayim actually highlights this really powerful quote from Yeshua in the Tikkun Birt Hadshah. He says, "No one takes it away from me. Instead, I give it up by my own choice."
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
It is, right. And it really brings in that idea of Bechira Chopshit, free will.
Oh, right.
We choose this path, this alignment with something bigger than ourselves.
That actually makes me think of the whole concept of a tzaddik. Like, how does Mesirat Nefesh play into their role?
That's a great connection because in Jewish mysticism, tzaddikim are seen as those who they can actually bring about positive change in the world through their actions.
Yeah.
And through their self-sacrifice, too.
So they're not just like good people.
Yeah.
They actually impact reality.
Exactly. They bring about these tikkunim, these spiritual repairs, you could say.
Wow.
The Zohar and other Kabbalistic writings, they describe tzaddikim as these conduits for divine light. Like, they channel that energy into the world.
Okay, so there's real power there.
There is, and that's where Gaddi Efrayim brings in Yeshua and asks, could he be an example of Mesirat Nefesh on this massive scale? Like, a tzaddik embodying this idea and causing these powerful tikkunum.
Whoa, okay, so we're getting into some deep waters here.
Yeah, we are. But it's fascinating to consider, right?
It is, and it all ties back to Tikkun Olam, repairing the world.
Absolutely.
It's like Mesirat Nefesh becomes the fuel for that, this desire to heal and improve everything.
It really is. It makes me think of the story of Isaac. That willingness to be sacrificed, it's not about the act itself, but that complete surrender to God's will.
Right.
It's understanding that following that path, even when it's hard, can be the highest form of service. And through that service, you get Tikkun Olam.
Okay, so we've got self-sacrifice for this greater purpose, this Tikkun Olam thing.
Yeah.
It makes me think about Mashiach ben Yosef, too.
Yes. Mashiach ben Yosef, he's definitely a key figure here.
Can you tell us a little more about him?
Sure. He's often linked to the idea of suffering being like, a catalyst for redemption. He kind of paves the way for a better future through his own sacrifices.
Okay. So how does Gaddi Efrayim connect Yeshua's actions to that whole idea, this universal redemption thing, through Mashiach ben Yosef?
Well, he suggests that Yeshua's Mesirat Nefesh, that willingness to suffer for the greater good, could actually be part of this larger messianic process, this path towards Tikkun Olam.
Interesting.
He's not saying definitively that Yeshua is Mashiach ben Yosef, but it raises the question, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Could Mesirat Nefesh be the key to unlocking some deeper, universal kind of redemption? It's really something to think about.
It really is. And where do Kasad and Kiddush Hashem fit into all of this?
Well, Mesirat Nefesh is considered the ultimate act of, loving kindness.
Right.
Because it's totally selfless. It's done for others, not for yourself. Yeah. Gaddi Efrayim points out this passage where Yeshua heals the sick, even though it, puts him in danger, draws attention to him. It's a really good example.
So even when it's risky.
Exactly. That's Kasad, fueled by Mesirat Nefesh, putting others first, even when it's hard. And that leads to Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name.
So it's not just about personal sacrifice, but about revealing something about, the nature of God through our actions.
You got it. And this leads us to another fascinating aspect of Mesirat Nefesh. In Jewish thought, suffering isn't always seen as a purely negative thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It can be transformed by a tzaddik. They can take that pain and turn it into, a catalyst for spiritual growth, for deeper connection with the divine.
That's pretty profound. And Yeshua's life, at least as it's described in these sources, seems to really embody that.
It does, doesn't it? He goes through immense suffering, but finds meaning and purpose within that.
Yeah. It's definitely not about seeking out suffering, but about what you do with it when it comes.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway for all of us. Mesirat Nefesh invites us to look at our own lives and ask, how can even small acts of self-sacrifice, done with the right intentions, make a real difference?
So, to sum it all up, Mesirat Nefesh is about so much more than just, giving up your life. It's aligning yourself with a higher purpose, embodying that kasad, that loving kindness, and potentially even taking part in repairing the world.
And as you go about your day, I want you to ask yourself, have you encountered Mesirat Nefesh in your own life, even in small ways? How do you define self-sacrifice?
Ooh, good one.
And could embracing this idea, even just a little bit, lead to a more meaningful life?
Those are definitely some powerful questions to ponder. If Tikkun Birt Hadshah is about personal spiritual rectification, how does Yeshua's self-sacrifice fit into that? Does it, contribute to other people's spiritual repair as well?
You're hitting on a really central point. According to this tradition, the actions of a tzaddik, a righteous person, can have a ripple effect.
Ripple effect.
Yeah. Bringing about rectification, not just for themselves, but for the entire world.
So, one person's self-sacrifice can start a wave of healing that spreads outwards.
That's the idea. The tzaddik's dedication, their self-sacrifice, it's believed to create this, spiritual energy. It can uplift, inspire others, help them on their own journeys towards spiritual wholeness.
Wow. So within Tikkun Birt Hadshah, Yeshua's Mesirat Nefesh is seen as having this ripple effect, contributing to the spiritual repair of the world. That's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It really is. Speaks to the interconnectedness of everything, and the power of our actions to create positive change. But remember, it all starts with choice. Mesirat Nefesh, in its truest sense, it's not about being forced to sacrifice. It's about choosing to dedicate yourself to something greater.
It's about agency, right? We have the power to choose what we prioritize, what we're willing to sacrifice for, how we want to impact the world around us. We're not just passive bystanders. We can actively participate in this whole process of spiritual repair.
You got it. And you know what? Kabbalistic texts, they see this conscious choice as a powerful act of tikkun olam, repairing the world. So even our small acts of self-sacrifice, those moments where we choose something bigger than ourselves, those can actually contribute to healing the world.
That's the idea. Even seemingly insignificant choices can have these huge consequences in the spiritual realm.
Wow, that's amazing.
It really is. Makes you think about everything in a new light, doesn't it?
It really does. This whole conversation has me reevaluating my own life, my choices, you know?
That's what Tikkun Birt Hadshah is all about. Making us consider the power we have to make a difference in our own lives and in the world around us.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. This deep dive into Tikkun Birt Hadshah has been, well, eye-opening, to say the least.
Totally. And for everyone listening, stay tuned. We're just getting started. We'll be back in a bit to dive even deeper. All right, welcome back to our exploration of Tikkun Birt Hadshah. You know, before we took a break, we were talking about Mesirat Nefesh, self-sacrifice, that deep connection it has to spiritual rectification. Right, and we were just starting to get into how some Jewish mystical teachings see Yeshua HaTzaddik, the righteous, as like the ultimate example of that idea.
Yeah, and it's really important to remember that this is a particular interpretation, you know, within this huge, diverse world of Jewish thought.
So not necessarily like universally accepted within Judaism.
Exactly. Jewish thought, it's incredibly rich, multifaceted. There's a whole spectrum of perspectives on these things. But within the framework of Tikkun Birt Hadshah, Yeshua's dedication to his teachings, his willingness to endure suffering for what he believed in, those are seen as really powerful expressions of self-sacrifice, of Mesirat Nefesh.
Right. And you were saying how this act of Mesirat Nefesh, it's thought to have a ripple effect. Not just personal transformation, but it contributes to the spiritual repair of the world.
Yeah, that's key. Remember Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, central to Jewish thought. This belief that we have a responsibility to heal the brokenness, you know, to make the world a better place.
And Tikkun Birt Hadshah suggests that acts of self-sacrifice, these acts of Mesirat Nefesh, that's a powerful way to contribute to that healing.
Precisely. When we choose to put something bigger than ourselves first, dedicate our lives to a higher purpose, we tap into this spiritual energy. It has the potential to transform not just ourselves, but the world around us.
Makes me think about the Akedah in a whole new way. We talked about Abraham and Isaac's willingness to sacrifice, but is there an element of Tikkun Olam in that story too?
You know, that's a really insightful observation. The Akedah, it's often seen as this foundational story for the Jewish people, right? Shapes their understanding of their covenant with God, their role in the world.
So by showing that unwavering faith, obedience, Abraham and Isaac were, in a sense, like laying the groundwork for the spiritual repair of the world. Their actions, they had meaning beyond just their own personal journeys.
It's one way to look at it, for sure. Their actions, that willingness to sacrifice, it can be seen as an act of tikkun, an act that helped bring balance, harmony to the world.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but I have to admit, it's a lot. It's making me think about my own life, the choices I make every day. If this Tikkun Birt Hadshah is all about this spiritual repair, how can we, like as individuals, actually practice it in our everyday lives?
That's a great question. And it's something that the teachings of Tikkun Birt Hadshah really encourage us to think about deeply. It's not about, you know, these big dramatic gestures. It's about the small everyday choices we make. Those moments when we choose to act with kindness, with compassion, with selflessness.
So it's about cultivating those qualities and then expressing them in like how we interact with others. Not about being a superhero, but those small acts of goodness.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even those seemingly small acts, you know, of kindness, of generosity, of putting other people's needs before our own, they can have this ripple effect, contributing to the healing, the repair of the world, one small act at a time.
I love that. Makes Tikkun Birt Hadshah feel a lot more, I don't know, accessible, more relevant to my daily life. It's not just this like lofty concept. It's something I can actually participate in.
That's the beauty of it. It reminds us that we all have this power to make a difference, to be agents of healing, of transformation in the world.
You know, we've talked a lot about Mesirat Nefesh, but I'm also curious about the new covenant part of Tikkun Birt Hadshah. What does that even refer to? How does it connect to this idea of spiritual rectification?
That's a great question. It takes us into the realm of, well, interpretation, theological perspectives. The term Brit Hadshah, it literally means new covenant. But within Tikkun Birt Hadshah, it's understood with more, nuance.
So we're talking about a literal, like, brand new covenant, like the old one's out, new one's in.
Right, exactly. It's more about a deepening, a renewal, a reinterpretation of the existing covenant between God and humanity.
Okay, I'm following. But can you, like, elaborate on that a bit? I'm really curious to understand how this new covenant fits into the whole picture of Tikkun Birt Hadshah.
Sure. So Tikkun Birt Hadshah suggests that the coming of Yeshua HaTzaddik, it represents this pivotal moment in the ongoing unfolding of that covenant. His teachings, his actions, they're seen as offering this new lens through which to understand the Torah's spiritual teachings and to deepen our relationship with God.
So it's not about throwing out the old, it's about finding new meaning, new depths of understanding within the existing tradition. Evolution, not replacement.
You got it. And this process, this deepening, this renewal, it's seen as absolutely essential to the ongoing process of tikkun, of spiritual rectification. It's through this continuous exploration, rediscovery, that we participate in this grand process, this process of healing, of transformation.
I'm really starting to see how all these ideas, they're so beautifully interconnected. We're talking self-sacrifice, repairing the world, renewing our understanding of our relationship with God. It's this truly holistic vision, really inspiring.
You've captured it perfectly. Tikkun Birt Hadshah offers this incredibly holistic vision. It's a framework for understanding our lives, our purpose, within this larger spiritual context.
It really is. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. It's been, like, truly illuminating.
The pleasure is all mine. It's always a joy to dive into these teachings, to share their wisdom.
And I know our listeners are eager to hear more. We'll continue our deep dive into Tikkun Birt Hadshah after a quick break. Stick with us. Welcome back to the deep dive. It's been quite the journey so far, right? Exploring this whole concept of Tikkun Birt Hadshah, this fascinating idea of spiritual rectification.
It really has, uncovering like layer after layer of meaning. We started with Mesirat Nefesh, self-sacrifice, and its connection to the Akedah, that powerful story with the binding of Isaac.
And then we got into how some Jewish mystical teachings see Yeshua HaTzaddik, like as a model of Mesirat Nefesh, and how his actions, they're seen as contributing to Tikkun Olam, that repair of the world idea.
Yeah, and we also touched on how Tikkun Birt Hadshah invites us to think about the new covenant not as like a replacement, but as a deepening, a renewal of that existing covenant between God and humanity.
Right. It's been a lot, but in a good way.
Yeah.
What really stands out to me is like how interconnected all these ideas are. Self-sacrifice, spiritual growth, repairing the world, even deepening our relationship with God. It's like not just a bunch of concepts, it's a whole different way of looking at the world, our place in it.
Yeah, you've got it. Tikkun Birt Hadshah offers this incredibly holistic vision, a framework for understanding our lives, our purpose, within this larger spiritual context.
It really is.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Yeshua as a model of Mesirat Nefesh, but I'm curious, are there other figures in Jewish tradition who, like, embody this concept?
Oh, absolutely. Jewish tradition is full of stories about people who demonstrated incredible dedication, self-sacrifice.
Okay, cool. Give us some examples.
Well, think about Rabbi Akiva. He kept teaching Torah even when it was forbidden by the Roman authorities. I mean, that's Mesirat Nefesh.
So it's not just like figures who are considered messianic. It's about like anyone who shows that deep commitment to a higher purpose, even when things get really, really tough.
Exactly. Mesirat Nefesh, it's an ideal that every Jew is called to strive for, each in their own way. It's about living a life of purpose, a life of service, aligning your will with the divine will.
Okay, so going back to the Akedah, we talked about how it's seen as this foundational story for the Jewish people. And if Tikkun Birt Hadshah is about renewing our understanding of that covenant, how does it view the role of the Jewish people in this whole process of spiritual rectification?
That's a really profound question. Gets to the core of Tikkun Birt Hadshah's message,
Yeah.
This tradition, it emphasizes that the Jewish people, they have a unique role to play. It's about recognizing the gifts, the responsibilities that come with being part of this people, this tradition.
Okay, so can you say more about that? Like, what is it about the Jewish people and their role that's so central to this idea of Tikkun Birt Hadshah?
So Tikkun Birt Hadshah, it teaches that the Jewish people, through their commitment to Torah, their covenant with God, they serve as this kind of spiritual beacon for the world. Their actions, their way of life, even just their existence, it's seen as like contributing to Tikkun Olam, like a light that shines outwards,
I see.
illuminating the path for others.
Got it. About acknowledging that the Jewish people, as a people, make this unique spiritual contribution to the world,
Yeah.
something that benefits everyone, regardless of their faith, their background.
Precisely. It emphasizes the importance of respecting, honoring the diversity of spiritual paths, while also acknowledging that special role that the Jewish people play. It's about embracing the richness, the complexity of human experience, recognizing that each tradition, each path, has its own unique gifts.
This is like really making me think about my own understanding of Judaism, its place in the world. My own place, frankly.
That's the power of these teachings, right? They challenge us to think deeply, to question, to embrace a broader perspective.
I have one last question, something I've been thinking about throughout this whole deep dive. If Tikkun Birt Hadshah emphasizes this new covenant, does that mean that the old covenant, it's like incomplete, outdated somehow?
That's a great question, one that comes up a lot. It's important to remember that Tikkun Birt Hadshah doesn't see the old covenant as like flawed or anything. It sees the new covenant as a deepening, a renewal, an unfolding of that original covenant, building on what came before, not replacing it.
So evolution, not replacement. This ongoing process of growth, understanding that unfolds over time.
Exactly. It's recognizing that our understanding of God, our relationship with God, our role in the divine plan, it's constantly evolving, deepening, expanding. We're not meant to stay the same. We're meant to be in dialogue with these ideas, wrestling with them, letting them shape us as we shape them.
I love that. It's like a spiral, right? Circling upwards,
Yeah.
always moving towards greater understanding, deeper connection. There's always more to uncover, more to learn.
What a great image. That captures it perfectly. Tikkun Birt Hadshah is calling us to embrace the journey, be open to new insights, recognize that this whole process of spiritual rectification, it's ongoing. It's a journey, a lifelong journey, and it's one that we take together.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. What an incredible journey it's been. From the Akedah to Mesirat Nefesh, Yeshua, Tikkun Olam, we've covered so much.
It's been a privilege to explore all of this with you. These teachings, they offer such a rich understanding of our spiritual lives.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, for guiding us through this complex, fascinating world of ideas. It's been truly illuminating. I know I'll be thinking about this for a long time.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Tikkun Birt Hadshah. Hopefully this has sparked your own curiosity, inspired you to continue on your own spiritual journey.
Until next time, keep diving deep.